Hello, welcome back. I'm going to fix something that was on this the way it came from. Hello, welcome back. Today I'm going to work on my UTB18, and one of the things I really liked about it, I bought this the day it came out, by the way. I went to buy a TRX-4M, saw it, thought it was cool. Then I saw this, and the TRX-4M didn't seem cool anymore. So I figured for $100 extra, the TRX-4 will never be as good as this was, and I use it for travel. One of the things I loved about this truck when I bought it was the light kit on it. It has the rock lights up front and these lights here, which I thought were really cool. And also I added this LED bar on the back. Later on, after figuring out that those lights actually kill the runtime very quickly, or more quickly than necessary, I just unplugged them. Well, that's kind of bad because one of the things I really liked about the truck was the fact that it had the cool light kit. So I am going to fix that problem today and put it on a switch so that if I'm ever traveling somewhere and the only time I get to go rock crawling is after dark, we'll be able to turn the lights on and I'll just have extra batteries and be able to deal with it. So the way I'm going to deal with it now is I have this tiny little micro switch, and I'm going to cut one of the wires and solder it in. However, it is a little bit long on the prong side for what I need it to do. I'll zoom in on that, and that is kind of problematic because how I'm going to insulate that is just makes no sense. So this is for people that want to see the whole process. I have some sheet metal cutters, and I'm just going to make those prongs shorter. Pretty simple. They just lost a few millimeters each. Now that will be easier to solder things onto and then insulate it later. So I'm going to do a little soldering demonstration in this video when I go to wire that in. I do have some cool stuff. I have this new tool. It's a MIP driver, MIP, however you say it. And this is a 2. I also have a 1.3, which I didn't know I was buying, but it's cool for SCX 24s. And I got this new drill after Christmas. There's a big sale, so I love this thing. It's fantastic. You just have to make sure that when you leave it, it is set to unscrew, because if you leave it set to screw in, then you accidentally hit it when you mean to unscrew something. You'll strip the threads out of whatever it is that you're working on. So to start off, I'm going to pull the 2 side panels off just to have access, because I'm going to have to get to the receiver and basically reconnect the wiring inside of there where there's not a lot of room. Also, I think it's going to be easier to drop the skid plate, but I'm going to find out if that's actually necessary. These are 1.5 millimeter hex bolt heads, so I have to use my standard tool on this one. That's fine. I'll probably at some point buy a 1.5 bit for my drill, but it's really not necessary because there are not that many screws that are 1.5 on a truck, and the ones that are, you really don't want to put a lot of torque on. So maybe I'll just skip the 1.5 driver. The only reason I have a 1.3 is I thought I was buying a 2 millimeter, and now I have it, so it's okay. But looking inside there, you can see how I've got the Mini 16, which is an amazing motor. I don't use that word very often, but it's really a great motor. So I reserve that word for things that are actually beneficial in my life, that actually make a difference. So this one completely changed the vehicle. When I installed the Mini 16, if you don't have a Mini 16 in your truck and you don't have any other sort of brushless system that you're happy with, the Mini 16 is very easy. It's super convenient to put in. It does a nice job. It extends the runtime. The torque delivery is 10th scale smooth. This is basically a 10th scale truck that has been shrunken down a little bit. It's not a true 118. It might be a 14 or a 12 scale. I'm not sure. but it's fantastic. So also, you may notice that the top roof panel of this truck didn't come on this truck. I had one of the orange fox ones, and it was cool, but I just kind of like the Axial Capra one, but I didn't like the orange stripe on the front, so it got painted. Anyway, this is the interior. If I need to take this thing completely apart, what I'll have to do is I'll remove both top stock screws and also this screw here and this screw here on both sides, and then the bottom plate can drop out. It looks like in there I will have access to the if I can see it, yeah, in there, see the two cords, those plugs going in, and then the upper slot here is where the lights connect. Because I do have the rear light bar, it's going to have to be connected to the other lights up here on the same circuit, and I could do that either by soldering or installing a Y plug and just plugging them both in. I'm going to probably do that. That'd be easier than soldering, but let me see if I have one. I think due to the number of cords I'm going to have to join, this is one for the light bar on the top of the truck that just got pushed back in there. I'm going to put that on a second switch as well, that I can turn on and off the upper light bar, because that's the biggest drain of lights on the entire truck, and I don't think it's completely necessary when you've got headlights and rock lights. So this one is going to be on a circuit that's also downstream, so I will be able to turn them all on at the same time, but turn this one off individually once the others are turned on. So I'm going to drop the skid plate. I'll show you how to do that real quick if you're interested. If not, you can jump ahead. I'll put a timestamp to the jump ahead point, but I'm going to pull the shocks. I did notice that I used the outside mounts on both of the front ones. They're farthest forward and then the farthest rear on the back here. So that is down, and we're just going to separate this body from the chassis to a degree. I do have the receiver currently hooked to the it's not hooked to the skid plate, it's hooked to the chassis, so I have to be careful with the cords a little bit. But this is for y'all who want to see the process of taking it apart. And having a drill, it's noisy on the video, sorry for that, but it makes the process go so much faster. Dropping the skid plate, as you can see, just takes a minute or so, and then it's out. Alright, there is the skid plate, and up here are the wires, and I don't even know what this is. A wire for the Mini 16. So I am going to get the wires all sorted here. This wire here goes to all the rock lights in the front. This wire back here, right here, that connector goes to the roof light. And this particular wire here goes to my light bar on the back. And I do want my light bar to turn on with the front lights. So that will be, I am gonna cut this and splice all these together. That would just make it simpler and cleaner. And then I'll probably, how am I gonna do this? This upper light bar is the problem. They don't give you a whole lot of wiring to deal with anything on it. I might pull that one out the top and put the switch inside the seating area of the car. So I think then I don't have to reach inside the car to do anything about it. I could actually just cut one of these wires right here and solder a switch in. That's probably what I'm going to do. Alright. This is the forward light bar up here, cord right here. What I've decided to do is cut the end of this off, and I'm going to extend it so that I can connect it to this cord here. I'm also going to cut the ends off of my rear light bar that's red, and I'm also going to connect it to the same one here. So I'm going to have 3 different wiring kits going into this one plug, and the front light bar up here is going to be switchable downstream of the main switch that I'm installing. So I've got some extending of various wires to do, and I'll show you a soldering thing in a minute. This is my process for soldering. First of all, I have a soldering iron that I just bought from Menards, and you get some solder, plug it in, let it heat up, get some solder on it, and then it's good to tin the wires. And what I use for tinning the wires, and I'll explain what that is you kind of pre-coat the wires that you're going to solder with solder. So I like to use acid flux. Some people use just paste flux, but I like acid because it gets in there. And I'm just going to paint the ends of this wire. And what the flux does, it removes all the contaminants, so that when you put the solder on it, it'll suck it in. And it's just going to take a second. I don't know if you'll hear it, but you saw that, and it was just a real quick hit, not really transferring heat much. It's just enough to make it soak into the wires. See that? Now they're pre-tinned and ready to be connected. So the process that I have now will just be cutting the wires that I need to pre-tin, stripping the insulation off of them so I have bare wire, and tinning those. Once they're tinned, I can work with it. So, by the way, if you were going to pull the entire transmission out, there's 4 bolts or 4 screws on the bottom of the skid plate that you just pull out if you need to remove this entire thing, and the whole thing will come out. You also have to disconnect the drive shaft yokes on the front and back of the transmission, but we're not going to do that today because it's not necessary. What is necessary is to get some wires opened up so that we can get to them. And it's going to seem like I'm doing the wrong thing here. That's okay. So this is going to be the wire that plugs into my receiver. It goes to all the front lights. This is the wire that goes back to everything else, and it is actually thicker than this little wire that came with the truck. So I might make this my plug that goes into the receiver just because it's a heavier wire, but it could take a little bit more abuse, and it doesn't matter as long as they're all connected red to red and black to black. So water has to have a way, or like I said, electricity flows like water, so we're just making sure that it has somewhere to flow to. So now we have our positive and our negative side. This plug here, they put it so you can have multiple ways to plug this in, a male end and a female end. We don't need the female end on this particular application, so I might just cut that off to simplify everything. I think the better way to do it would be to go in here and just unsolder it. And to unsolder, you just get it hot and pull apart. It's pretty easy. So I'll strip the insulation off that, and we're going to use this plug here because the wire coming out is heavier, and I won't be having to feed 3 light bars through a tiny wire. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this apart, and I'll be right back. So we've got, this is the main power supply that's going to plug into the receiver. So it is going to go out to 3 different light sets, and this is going to go out to the negative side of the 3 light sets. And when it's all done, these are going to go, I'm going to put these on the bottom side. What this is heat shrink tubing, and this will insulate the wires after we get them soldered. And I put them on the single side because when it's done I can slide it up and it'll cover all 3 of the branches that come out of each one of these, and then you just put a lighter on it and it shrinks down. Heat shrink tubing. So I'm going to go ahead and tin a few more wires. I've got these back here, ready to be tinned. I've got a couple sets inside here that also are just about ready, and I'm going to join them up, and then I'll show you the heat shrink if you want to see that too. So one of the things I have is a holder, and sorry for the camera jumping between. This is a S25 Ultra, and it jumps between certain lenses at certain distances, and it's kind of obnoxious, but it does it. So I've got one of these holders that is kind of nice because it gives you a third hand, and I'm going to join a red wire to a black wire because this is going to be an actual positive wire. I just don't have a lot of red coated wire. But I'll show you how heat shrink tubing works. Basically, you sometimes have to strategically place it on, and you put it over the gap like this, and then take a lighter and it shrinks down. So I use clear heat shrink because I like it, because then you can look in there and see the connection if it's good or not. This is ready to go on, and this is an extension wire for the back of this truck. It's going to be hooked to this red wire over here. But before I hook it to that, I'll scoot the phone over here. I'm putting this little micro switch in right there in the line that's going to go to positive, so that once I turn all the lights on, I can still turn off the front light bar on the top of the car individually. So once I feed this extension wire in through the car, I'll know that this is the positive side because it's got a red insulation on it. And I can just easily hook it up. There we go. Solid connection. Now I'll just wire this into the red line right here, and it's ready to be fished back through the body. And then I'll do the same thing with the black, but I'm not going to have a switch in that part. That is connected. So, okay, we got the switch in now. That's good. And once I get this all done, I'm just going to put some tape around it to insulate that. I guess I could put a little bit of heat shrink tubing right down on the extended side. I really only have to insulate one half of this because there's nothing here that conducts electricity other than the wire itself, so I'm not going to short anything out. But why not have it heat shrunk anyway? That'll be nice. Alright, that one is ready to go back through the body. I'll just slide that right into that hole right here. And this will be hidden up inside the body once or somewhere, I'll hide it. But I'll put the black extension on and fish it through, and then it'll be ready for the inside work. It has occurred to me the better way to do this would be to buy a light controller and just wire it in, and then I could have strobe lights and I could do all kinds of stuff with it. But I didn't do that because I don't want to. This is just a simple truck. I'm trying to keep it basic, and I'll be able to just hand select switches and not worry about setting radios up and channels and all that business. So this is how it's going to be. It'll be all right. All right, I'm just going to put some tape around this just to make it not so ugly and give it something to hang on to. Got my duct tape over here that I keep a section of it stuck to the table. You might have heard me ripping the duct tape off, but it's actually Gorilla tape. Better quality, lasts longer, holds better, looks better. It's just nicer. So I'm just gonna put this around here. Normally I don't go into detail this much, but I had a request to do so from I think Action Jackson earlier, so we're giving a little extra detail on this one just for you. Anyway, this is my light bar switch that will control the front light bar. Tucked in out of the way, you won't even see it when I'm driving. Now I'll get up underneath here, and I have multiple wires to connect. Gotta make sure I don't burn myself with the soldering iron here. And I'll fish some wires through so that they can be somewhat organized. All right, I'll show you what I'm gonna do. This wire and this wire are for the top light bar. This is going to the switch on the front. I have another set of these two wires right here and this red wire here, and these are for my rear light bar. And then these two wires here are going to be my front headlights and rock lights on the front. So I'm going to join all three of the red ones together and connect them to this here, but I also need to put a switch in this, or else I'm no better than I was when I started. So let me get a switch installed somewhere in the line. I'll figure this out, and this way I can have a switch that I'm going to mount somewhere over here next to the other switch that I can just turn on and off to make the lights go on and off. Let's do it manually, because if I'm using them, it's going to be at nighttime, and I'm not going to need to turn them off until I'm done driving. So I'll just go ahead and join those three together, solder them to this, join the three reds, solder it to this, join the three blacks, solder it to this. Then I'll wire in a second switch and put the thing back together. Well, I meant to video the joining of the three chassis wires together into the one plug, and then I taped it, but I didn't get it videoed. So I hit the off button when I meant to turn it on, so I didn't get it. But what I'm going to do now is just find my three black wires that need joined together. These are the negatives, and we're going to fuse these, and in between these and the plug is where I'm going to put the switch wires. So these will go together, and the black wire from the lighting system on the front of the truck, these are all going to be connected together, all three of these. So I'll get those set up. Then we'll run these, all three of these. I'm just going to twist them together and hit them with solder. So we'll give ourselves a little more. Anytime you got to twist wires, you need to have a little bit more insulation off, just so you have enough wire to be able to twist them together. And then I'll take the black wire here, do the same thing. I'm just going to rip the casing off of it like that, and yeah, those came apart. That's okay. They're all going to get twisted together and soldered, because I want them to. So they just need to hold long enough to get the solder on them. I'm going to flux that. working super great, but it's fine. It will work. Little acid flux. I figured out this acid flux when I used to race slot cars a long time ago, but I just bought it on eBay. Mid-America soldering acid flux. I think it's hydrochloric acid. If you get it on your skin, it won't hurt you. Just wash it off. It's not going to make your skin boil off or any stupid stuff like that. So it's not a concern if you do. All right. So I'll get some solder on the end of the soldering iron. Nice ball of it. Tap it, let that soak in. Those are fused. This is the master switch, and this one is the master for all the lights. Then downstream, I have the secondary light switch for the top front light bar, which is the highest drain of all the lights. So this is ready to go in. I'll just put this in line between the plug and the triple black wire that we joined, then put the thing back together. Of course, I'll plug it into my number 3 slot on the receiver for auxiliary, and it'll be ready to go. I now have everything soldered and ready to hook into the receiver, and unfortunately it's the top plug in this mess up here, and the negative wire is usually on the outside of the plug, so it's the outer wall is usually negative. So that is also the case on this, so I'm going to go ahead and plug it in. It's a rat's nest of wires, so I'm going to have to do that kind of off camera. Then all that's left to do is plug a battery into it and test the lights. Before I put this together, I'm going to go ahead and connect a battery to this. We'll power the car on, and it should come on. I'll turn the radio on too, just to make sure there, it's powered. Alright, so I'll turn the master switch on for the lights, and hopefully they come on. They did not. I've clearly done something wrong. I think I have to connect it to the first and middle, not the first and third. So I'll go back and resolder this master switch and this master switch, and then I think it'll work. We'll put it back together. Now on this switch here, I just broke the end lead off of the switch because I don't need it, and I'm going to slide this heat shrink tube on now because obviously it won't go on later with the wire connected. So let's just hit that in place with a little bit of solder, and we'll test the lights again. The light bar one will not illuminate because I've not corrected that plug yet, but this one's kind of a confined area. Heat transfers quickly, so I'm going to use pliers to hold it this time. And I can already see the lights turned on. So I was correct with my assumption. And I've got, let me zoom that out. I've got headlights. They're all 4 on, the rock lights, the headlights. Troublingly, my rear lights did not come on. I have to figure that out. This switch is corrected. Let me slide that back down. We'll heat shrink that real quick because that's got live wires at the moment. Normally I don't solder with the battery connected and a circuit energized, but I didn't figure it hurt anything this time, and it didn't. Alright, I'll just tape that back up. I've removed the rear light bar and hooked up a small light to the front here, and or the in place of it, I should say. And let's just connect this and see if I have good battery power going to that light, because I know that light works. We do have good power going to it, so I know those wires are good. All my other wires are good. If I click this, I get light bar on the top. If I unclick it, it goes away. I have lights, rock lights, and headlights. So that means that my 3D printed, you know, I think of 3D printed stuff most of the time, but this little rock light just isn't going to work. I've got to order a new rear red rock light because this one's jacked up. I don't know if it can be fixed or not, but we'll see. I'll dig into this a little bit, resolder the connections. Hopefully it'll work, and I'll be able to resolder it in place of this test light. So I do know that everything on the chassis is good, so I'm going to put that back together. I'm going to cut this back off because it's not a permanent part of the truck. Although really wouldn't hurt anything to leave it there for the time being, but I'm just going to cut it off anyway. I'll get the truck put back together. I'll insulate these wires in the meantime until I can get a new rear light bar for my UTB18. Well, just to wrap this up a little bit better than I did, you can see I have all the functional forward lights, including, if I want it, the light bar, which I don't, because that thing is a massive battery drain. Even if I was running this at night, I would not run with the light bar. So I'm just going to leave that turned off. This light on the tail here is a placeholder, and I will cut that off when I get a new rear light bar that's red. So in the meantime, at least there's something back there that lights up for if I take it out at night, it's, you know, gonna shine some light somewhere. So I've got my rock lights back. They are selectable, and they are on the switch right here. So during the day I can switch them off, I can turn them on. At night, whatever I want to do. So I got my lights back. It's now selectable again, and actually again for the first time. That's what I needed it to be. So the shocks have been refilled. Got my shock bands back on, and this thing is ready for the 26th season. We'll talk to y'all later.